Everyone, it's Crystal with Sober Onions podcast. Today's a beautiful morning in Ventura, and I have a special guest, Kathy from Sober Dating App. I'm very excited. You want to say hi, Kathy, where you're from?
Hey, my name's Kathy and I'm an alcoholic. And originally I'm from California, but now I live in Charleston, South Carolina.
All right. My sister's actually in North Carolina right now. So they're just, they're visiting there, which she said the weather's really, really good. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting. So anyways, I'm really excited. The whole reason we connected was on Instagram, which is all kind of new to me, especially in my new journey of sobriety with being what they call a sober influencer. You're influencing people to be encouraged during their sobriety to kind of keep your head above water, which is really what I'm doing. I mean, I'm going on 6 months, which is like nothing, and things just keep happening still for me. And kind of just a little update on me and something that happened to me on Friday. Well, it didn't happen to me. I happened to do it to myself. But I was in detox, and then I went into rehab. And when I got out of rehab, I went right back into like the work world and driving and back to reality. And right away, and they say everything happens in the first 90 days of your sobriety because it's just chaotic. You're getting sponsors, you're going to meetings, you're not drinking. For me, I was on Vivitrol. There was all kinds of things that were happening in my life. Well, lucky me, I got 2 tickets within like a span of a week and a half. I got a ticket for running a red light and for my plates still being Florida plates when I had moved to California in January. But then when I went to rehab and everything that was happening, I couldn't get insurance unless I had California insurance, but I couldn't have California insurance unless I had California plates. It was just a disaster. So I was right in the middle. And of course, I got a ticket for that too. And then I also got a ticket for being on my cell phone because you can't be on your cell phone here. So I was in like about $825 in tickets. Right off the bat. I'm like, sober, boom, right? And I'm crying and I'm trying to explain to the cop, like, I'm a hot mess. And I've tried to play the victim of, oh, I'm from Florida and I just don't know how to drive. And they weren't having it. So my court date was on Friday. And of course, they put both my tickets together. So I had to go and face the judge being like, oh, wow, I had 2 tickets like back to back. And I'm praying the cops don't show up, because they dismiss it. And of course, we get there and they're dismissing cases left and right, so-and-so, and the cop's not there, dismissed. And both of my cops show up. And I'm like, great, this is fantastic. I got both cops there. And they get up there, and before you go in, they show you paperwork of all the photos from the corner lights, from their cop car lights now. And I'm not used to all that. It's been a long time since I've been to court for a ticket. And then they have pictures from their chest cameras of me and inside my truck. And then they snap it like whenever they want. And I look like I'm yelling at the cops because I'm like trying to explain myself and I use my hands. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get out of these tickets because I look like so terrible. I'm completely guilty. I'm going to end up having to pay these fines. And then the same thing with the second cop, same thing, like had my phone, I had my mount, and the phone was on the floor, but it didn't matter. So it was that he had the photo. So I'm basically arguing nothing. And so I'm humiliated. Then they call my case up and I'm standing there and the cops do their whole thing about, my ticket. Finally, the judge, he says to me, do you have anything to say? And I'm just like, I don't have anything to say. I'm guilty.
Sorry.
Like here's what I'm doing amends all day, every day, it seems like. So here we go. Here's
yours.
Yeah. So I literally just said, Your Honor, I really don't have anything to say. I said, that month was totally chaotic. I had just gotten sober. It was in the first 90 days of my sobriety, and they say like everything happens in the first 90 days, and it just did. It was just chaotic when I got out of rehab, and because you wanted to know the gap of why I hadn't gotten, my tags and everything done. And so I was like, well, I was inpatient rehab and getting sober. And so he said, how many days sober are you now? And I said, I'm 160, I'm 5 months. And the courtroom is just packed. And he said, you know what, I congratulate you. I commend you. It's so hard to get sober, especially in the 20th century with it everywhere. And he goes, and I sit here all day and I see DUIs and I see all this stuff. And for you to get sober and stay sober is just such an example. And I'm just pouring at this point. I'm just crying. Oh my gosh, I'm just so overwhelmed. It just hit me in the face that I really am just only 5 months sober, because the last 5 months have felt so long to me. And he said, I'm going to drop your fines down to $280, which was insane. And then also I can go and apply for homeless court and use my hours from my rehab to help pay for the ticket. So it was just like, what they say about the promises and in sobriety just was in fruition for me, because I was crying. And, he saw it and he said, again, he goes, congratulations on your sobriety. And then he addressed the court, like literally on the microphone. And he said, I want all of you to see this as an example that it is possible to get sober and you can stay sober. And I was just in tears. And this woman came up to me afterwards when I was leaving, and she said, I've been struggling, and like I was here today for something that I was rescheduled to, and seeing you helped me, want to go get sober. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So it's been a roller coaster for me for sure. And so this podcast has definitely been an accountability, and it's kept me going, even though it has been overwhelming, because there is, expenses with it. And there's also accountability to people that are listening and all of the social media marketing, and I'm loving it. But living it is a whole nother thing. You can talk about it all day, but living a sober life is definitely a day-to-day thing. And so that's what's been going on with me. So enough about me.
Well, the takeaway from your court date is that you didn't drink over it. And that is the miracle, is that all those things happened to you and you have a sober lens now. And so you walked in there leading with, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to face, the consequences, and whatever it is, I will deal with it, but I'm not going to drink over it. And that's what sobriety is. And sharing that story is what sobriety is. And, it's the miracles like that. That's people may think that's a small miracle. That's a huge miracle.
Huge. And I just felt like it was so emotional. Like I got to my truck and I just sat there and I prayed, for peace, and just I was overwhelmed with emotion, gratefulness, wow. And thank God, I didn't drink over it. I was stressed for 2 days before I even went to court. I mean, $825 is a lot of money, and I knew I was guilty. So it was like, I was just overwhelmed, and it was just such a blessing, and to be commended by someone in such a like he's in a position of authority. To look at me and say, I commend you and you're an example. And I look at myself and go, oh my gosh, I have so many things I have to work on. And he just, he put me in a position where it just overwhelmed me. And I was just so blessed and grateful that I had made that choice to get sober, because that's the biggest thing, is that making that choice. Because once you can think about being sober all day, you can try to be sober, and it doesn't work. But to actually be active in the sober lifestyle is a whole nother thing, and it's definitely been difficult for me. So
well, it's also a disease of what ifs. Like, oh my gosh, what if this happens? What if that happens? And you did that in the courtroom. You sat there thinking about, okay, well, if the cops don't show up, then it's going to go this way. And I think, for me, for this alcoholic, when I just step back, hit the pause button and say, okay, I'm not in control here, and whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen, and I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to deal with it without drinking. That's the first and foremost. I mean, shit happens, but it's going to get worse if I drink.
Absolutely.
Bottom line.
Absolutely. Well, that is what happened to me this week. So let's talk about you because I'm super excited. You are obviously across the states. There's a little bit of a time change, so it's a little bit earlier for me. But I want to know more about you, how long you've been sober, why you got sober, how you maintain your sobriety. You're a mother just like me. Your kids are a little bit older, just like mine. So we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about you.
So I'm 60 and I have 4 kids.
You look great, by the way, for anybody that can't see you.
Thank you. And I have 2 grandkids, and I am divorced. I was married for 27 years and got married very young, had 4 kids, and the divorce was brutal. It was a horrible, horrible. I mean, I think most divorces are, but it really was. It was a war. And I didn't drink growing up. I didn't drink in college. I didn't drink in high school. My mother was an alcoholic when I was younger, and there's a lot of trauma surrounding that. And I always said, I'm not going to turn out like my mom. And it's a family disease. So after I got divorced, everything was a celebration. I started traveling. I went to Europe. I reconnected with relatives in Belgium. And I just found myself constantly with a drink in my hand. And I turned 50 when I got divorced, and I had a 50th birthday party. And then loneliness set in, real loneliness. I was an empty nester. My kids were all on the East Coast. I was on the West Coast. And, I don't talk a lot about this, but my youngest daughter doesn't speak to me. And I don't blame her. I wouldn't talk to me either. So
I don't know if you know that, but I'm in the same situation. My youngest hasn't talked to me in 2.5 years. My oldest just reached out. It had been almost a year, and she had just texted me. And on my previous podcast, I talk about that, about how my kids aren't talking to me. And like you said, I don't blame them either, but it is difficult.
Yeah, no, I thank you for sharing that. It's the first time that I have said that out loud publicly. And I think I need to do that more often. And so anyways, I'm working on that, the amends. And so I literally woke up in a hotel room in Las Vegas after a night of drinking, which I said I wasn't going to drink. I'm not going to drink tonight. I can do this. And of course, I was at the end of my disease, and it was real bad. So I woke up and looked at my phone and saw that I had texted ex-boyfriends, and I texted a few other people that I owe amends to. And I got down on my knees and I just started praying. And I said, God, I need help. And I heard this little voice in my head say, call Mimi. And Mimi was a very, very dear friend of the family, the entire family. And she's become even closer with me in the last 2 years. And I called her and I said, she's sober. And I said, I think I need to go to a meeting. So she took me to my first meeting. And from that day forward, I've been sober for 23 months. It'll be in 3 weeks, it'll be 2 years.
Oh, exciting.
And it really is. And every day I learn something new, and it has not been easy. I do stay sober through AA. For me, that works. It is, I really love the structure of it. I love the foundation of it. I love the principles of it. And it's something that just works for me. And, I got sober. You talk about the first 90 days. When I first got sober, I had only been going to the rooms for the meetings for 90 days. And then we got shut down because of the pandemic. So I have essentially gotten sober on Zoom. Which is, I think, just speaks to the miracle of the program. Being able to sit in front of a computer and learn how to log in and, go through the process of the meeting and, having that fellowship. And I went through 4 sponsors during it, but I wasn't going to go back to that day. I was not going to go back to my last drunk. and I was going to do whatever it took. And it has been painful. I mean, I moved cross country, and sold my house in California, moved here, and through all of that, stayed connected and sober. And it has worked for me. It's been a powerful and profound experience. And in that, I've developed this app, which is
let's talk about, before we talk about that, what brought you from California to South Carolina? Because for me, I was in Florida because I met the kid's dad when I lived in Australia and Fiji in '97, and he was from Florida and I was from California. So that to me makes sense. Like I came home. What brought you from California to South Carolina?
So when I was married, I lived in Connecticut. I met my former husband in California, just out of college. I met him in between my junior and senior year, and then we got married after I graduated. He's older. And then we lived in California, but then his career took him to New York. And so for 20 years, I raised my kids in Greenwich, Connecticut. Okay. And so the kids essentially are from the East Coast. In 2005, my former husband and he retired, and we moved to Santa Barbara. And I was so excited to be back home. California is home for me. My oldest was born in California, but the kids were still on the East Coast. And so, got divorced, I got the house in Montecito, and the house sold. I kept on saying, why isn't the house selling? Why isn't the house selling? Well, the house didn't sell, I believe now, because I had to get sober, and I had to get sober in Santa Barbara. And I did. So the pandemic hit. My son-in-law lost his job in New York, and my middle daughter lost her job. And they all decided to come here to Charleston. And then my house sold, and I was like, I can live in Charleston. Mm-hmm. So house sold, they moved here, I moved here. So I'm near my grandkids, I'm near my two daughters. My son lives in Texas, and my youngest, the baby, who does not talk to me, she still lives in California.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah, so that's how I got
great.
here.
So you've been sober for 2 years, and your program is almost 23 months, and your program's AA. That's my program too. Like, it's not for everybody. It works for me. Now for me, how we met was on Instagram, because you have this incredible site, and you have this great new app that is called Sober Dating. Now for me, I'm new in sobriety, and my sponsor says do not date.
You gotta wait for a year.
So
perfect timing.
Talk to me about your new app, Sober Dating, which also, if you are listening today, go ahead and message soberonions@aol.com for a chance to win a package from Sober Onions and the Sober Dating app.
Yeah, I've got a great swag bag, and you've got some great items. So married 27 years, got divorced, and my oldest daughter decided to sign me up for Match.com, which I was like, first of all, it wasn't even an app for your phone. It was on the computer. It was so ridiculous. No, it was so outrageous. It was so ridiculous. She had all the login information. She was setting things up. She was saying no to people. She was saying yes to people. I absolutely hated it. I deleted it. A few years later, I got back on. And then, about 5 years, I was about 5 years divorced. I really, really missed being in a relationship. And so, but at that point, I was drinking so much. I mean, I went on so many drunk dates. I should write a book about ridiculous things that happened. But I really love being in relationship. I really, really miss it. I have wonderful relationships with my 3 children and my grandchildren, and I just love that. But I really miss being in a relationship. So I was about 9 months sober, and I started thinking about dating again. And literally the thought of going onto one of those apps gave me a stomach ache. And I was praying about it. One night I was just praying about it as I went to bed, and the idea just popped in my head. Why don't you just create your own dating app? Crazy. So it just all started to evolve. It was like I started talking to my kids. I talked to my daughter's boyfriend. his best friend worked for Apple, and he said, you need to talk to Will about this. And so I did. We all went to dinner, and I could just tell when I said, I've got an idea for an app, and he was just like, yes, everyone has an idea for an app. So he listened to me, and I said, it's a sober dating app. It would be a platform for people that are, like-minded and, are sober and don't drink, or for whatever reason. And he said, I think this is a great idea. He said, I have a really good friend that was an app developer at Apple that went out on his own. He said, let me give you his name and number. Called him, and we hit the ground running. And the traction was unbelievable. And we developed this app, and I really love it. I'm super proud of it. We are at a little over 700 subscriptions, and we can talk about that in just a second. But it's really important from everyone that I'm hearing on the development side that we have enough people on the platform to make it worth it. So, we don't, if you have 5 people on the platform, you're not going to meet someone. But, from what we're hearing, if we have 1,000 people who have subscribed, well, then we'll get enough traction for people to meet and connect. Sure. So what we've done is the first 1,000 people that sign up for it, you go to the App Store and you just go ahead and pre-order it. The premium membership, so you get all the bells and whistles, you get all the perks, you get the video chat, you get all the messaging, you will get everything for free for 6 months. So the first 1,000 people that do that, as soon as we launch it and we hit that button to launch and it goes live, it will automatically download onto your phone and you will be ready to go. So
that's
we're close. Yeah, we're close.
Well, when I first saw it, I thought, man, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? I'm sure everybody thought that, because even before I was sober, okay, I've been single a long time, and it's the only way to meet anybody. It's so bougie now, it's like what everybody does. It's totally acceptable. Before it was like you hid it, yeah. And now it's actually like a prerequisite. Like I liked it. You can, if they're honest, but you can kind of tell right away by talking to them and knowing like what type of person they are and the way they look, you're not wasting time. But the number one thing is meet up for a drink.
Right.
That's
meet at a bar.
That is how people meet. It's a public place. It's somewhere where, you can get your liquid courage, to have enough guts to go on a date with someone you absolutely don't know, because you always in the back of your mind you're going to think, are they like their picture? Right. Are they really the person they thought they were? Are they, they say they're 6 foot, but then they're like 5, like it really is like there's horror stories.
Yeah.
And so in the back of your mind, you're still thinking that. I mean, they have on some of the radio stations that I listen to in the morning, like they have literally just like a little bit on like the funniest online dating stuff. And the stuff that happens, like I either laugh or my brain is boggled that people are so weird. So it's a really good filter, like to, be able to go on and say, you know what, this is what I like. This is what I do. This is who I am. But when you're sober, it changes everything, because you cannot date someone who drinks. I can't. I have friends who their husband is still an alcoholic and they're in the same program I am, and I don't know how they do it. Like that's what like God and them are like super tight, because I couldn't do it. I have friends who date, they are dating somebody. I had a friend who I was in rehab with, and she was in rehab for 100 days and went home and relapsed right away because it was all over the house. And so it's when you are sober and you're in a relationship, you have to be with someone who is on the same page, in my opinion. So if you're single, it's so nice to be able to go, oh my gosh, there's an app out there that I can say, hey, I am sober. I don't drink, or I don't smoke weed, or I don't, it's really important to a lot of people. And there's a lot of people that lie about it. Like on the app, it says, do you drink? And every single person checks socially. Like you be a full blown alcoholic and you're going to check socially. So I love that even being on the app, you're accountable to the fact that you're saying, hey, I'm sober.
Yeah.
You know, it's like me
Yeah.
having a sober podcast. I could have called it anything. I could have called it Crystal's podcast, because
Right.
then in 6 months, if I decided not to be sober, I could literally change what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. But no, I named it Sober Onions because I knew I needed to be accountable.
Yeah.
And sober dating, I feel, is the same way. It's like you're saying, listen, this is something that is important to me, and I'm sober. Are you sober? Let's connect.
Well, I used to refer to dating apps as liars.com. I just, everybody lied. And, I think that we always want to, put our best self out there. And I think that, you get behind, I call it keyboard warrioring, where, you get behind the computer and you have the courage to kind of fudge things. But, in the app, what I've done is, so we have these thing called sober badges. So it's kind of like, people don't drink because of medical reasons. People don't drink because of religious reasons. People don't drink because, there's family issues. Like, I didn't drink for years because my mother didn't. And then we have the category of fellowship, which is through AA, through a 12-step recovery program. And once you click on those, then the algorithm kind of takes you on a journey where, so it does. So if you're in AA, there are questions like, how long have you been sober? How often do you talk to your sponsor? How often do you meet with your sponsor? How comfortable are you being in situations socially where there is alcohol? Because some people just won't even go to a bar. And, some people don't care. It doesn't matter, So there's all these different nuances that I think, and it's ever evolving, we're always, looking to make it better.
I think something that has come up definitely with myself and just people that I'm around too is the controversy of the non-alcoholic drinks, because they're becoming so popular and social media is pressing them so much. There's people that triggers them. And so one person who's sober might consider, okay, well, I'm sober, but we're going to have a glass of non-alcoholic wine. And the other person is like, no, it still has alcohol in it. And I think, that has to be established too, because you have to be on the same page with that too, because it can be a trigger.
Yeah. For me, I can't do it. I romanticized alcohol so much. I had a drink named after me, after my favorite watering hole in Santa Barbara. And so, I would walk in and they would be making that margarita. And so for me, there's just so many triggers and so many, there was just so much romance involved. And so for me, I stay away from them. I think there are people that, that's just not a problem for them. And that's amazing, but I can't do it. Not now, not yet.
Yeah. I agree. It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
So once it launches, at that point, then people will start being in the algorithm, and then they'll be able to rate it. They'll be able to, at that point, you can start, is there an option where, like, let's say 2 people get together and then you're like, hey, it's because of sober dating app. Is that going to be something that you kind of move forward to as well?
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. It's really, I can genuinely say, I really want to connect people, and, and there's a commonality here of, living a lifestyle without drugs or alcohol. And, I think that is something that actually enriches my life. The other thing that's great about the app is that, because, I know in California, there's still a lot of places that you can't go, but, there is the ability to video chat on the app. And so you don't have to give your phone number. You can video chat and, meet that way. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I want to do. I want to start doing things like at events, like at Super Bowl parties they always have these great events down in Florida, and having sober lounges where, you can go and hang out and, maybe have non-alcoholic drinks. I don't know, but, go and, kind of like take a time out away from all of that, at concerts like Governor's Ball. Let's have sober lounges, let's have places where, I want to become the majority. I keep on telling my kids, they're like, isn't it, Alcoholics Anonymous? Because I'm so vocal about it. For me, I'm not anonymous about it. I'm so proud of my sobriety. I really want to get rid of the stigma that, we're mentally ill, we're kind of like outcasts. And I feel very lucky to have found out that I am an alcoholic. My life is so much better now. I have a set of tools that I wish everybody had to deal with life, and so
That's
anyways.
interesting that you just said that the set of tools. That's actually my next episode that I'm working on, that I'm doing on, because I've had a lot of people listen, and I have people that listen that aren't drinkers, and they're like, what are tools, or what is the lingo? There's all this lingo. Like, I know that, like, when I first went to my first meeting, I was like, what are they talking about? Right. So there's definitely a lot of educational things out there that we can help everyone, because it is very trendy right now to be sober curious, and I talk about that a lot, because one of my friends posted the other day on Instagram that if you've Googled "Am I an alcoholic?" you probably are. And I used to Google it. I used to Google like, how many drinks is an alcoholic, or like, how long do you have to drink to be an alcoholic, or like, I would always Google it, and it always annoyed me, because every time you Google it, some treatment center would come up, like an ad, and immediately I'd be turned off. I'd be like, not me. I'm not going to treatment center. That's not what I was asking Google. Okay, like, I wanted to just know, like, am I an alcoholic? Like, don't tell me I need a treatment center. And then I ended up in a treatment center. But I think the idea of the sober dating app is really incredible. So for you, is it something that you're going to be using, or?
It's so funny, because I always tell my girls, I want to meet someone organically. I want to, be shopping in the grocery store and our carts bump into each other. They're like rolling their eyes, like, it doesn't happen like that. But it's really, I don't know what it is with me. I just have such bad luck. I was recently dating someone who told me he had over 18 years of sobriety, and he didn't. He was a liar. And he got a DUI. And I found out that he got a DUI because I Googled him. It was like, while we were dating, he got a DUI.
Oh, dumbass. My God.
So anyways. No, I don't know. I've been holding out for the grocery store Nancy Meyer movie moment.
You never know. You might use your own app and find true love, right? Well, speaking of toolbox, so this was the other question I wanted to ask you, was you've been sober almost 2 years. What do you use to stay sober, and what are your tactics, or is your daily schedule, is your routine? What molds the day for you to go one day at a time?
Yeah. So when I first got sober, I did everything that I was told. I literally, I was in a place where what I was doing wasn't working. And so I bought into, if you want to stay sober and not drink again, you got to do what I tell you. And it was, at first it was the fellowship. It was going to meetings and listening to everybody else. And then I found a sponsor and I actually lost her because of the pandemic. When the meetings got, literally one day there was a meeting and the next day we were done. It was shut down. So I ended up finding a phenomenal sponsor. But I start my day with a routine. Every single day I wake up, first thing I do is I thank God for another day of sobriety. I think, and then I have my morning meditation every single morning. And I read from the big book. And, I actually read from other books that are not AA approved. And I just get my mindset into, okay, today is going to be another day of sobriety. And I am going to use my tools and what I know, and what I don't know, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call someone. And, that's really how I stay sober. I do a lot of service work in AA. I go to the mental health hospital and I lead meetings. I'm a GSR rep.
What's GSR?
General Service Council. So
Okay.
I go to at the state level, I go and, we just talk about what's going on in AA and, and how Zoom is not going to go away because that has cast a wide net for members to be able to have access. And it's just, I think
I
that's
just got
another
a
miracle.
panel on the H&I. So the board just approved me to lead a meeting here in Ventura at one of the treatment centers. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. So that should be interesting.
I think giving back is huge. I started to become real involved in Charleston and some sober, there's some sober groups that do outreach. And so I'm getting involved in that, but really getting outside of my own self because I get in my own way. So
well, great. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't. I mean, you have your Instagram account is so great. I love looking at your stuff.
Thank you so much.
It is a great community. I think that the sober influencers is just a wealth of resource for people.
It really is. It's helped me a lot. I think that I had no idea when I went into detox and rehab. I didn't realize, because they take everything away from you. You have no phone, you have no nothing. So when I got out and I started Googling and looking into sober this, sober that, I was overwhelmed. I had no idea how many resources there was, and I had no idea that there was so many influencers out there and how much you can get involved. Like I said, the H&I is the hospitals and the institution, and I'm doing that. And then I'm working with Clean Cause, which Clean Cause is the yerba mate tea drink, which gives 50% back to alcohol and drug recovery. So I'm doing my best trying to get behind things that help, because I know for me, I was blessed and fortunate enough to have financial resources through friends and family while I was out of work, while I was in rehab. And I know a lot of people don't go to rehab or don't get help because they're fearful that they'll lose their job. And there's a lot of jobs out there that will give you the time off to get healthy, and you'd be surprised how many jobs will. If you're just honest with your boss. And then there's also resources out there like the Clean Cause, and there's tons of other ones that are giving back to help with this recovery resource that we need to get sober. So because initially the beginning is very difficult, and so for me that's kind of where I am, is just trying to continue to be accountable and give back. So with that, I'm gonna say thank you so much. I am so excited to meet you, and of course I will be seeing you. And again, this is Kathy from the Sober Dating app. You can download the app. Everybody who downloads the app, the first 1,000 people to pre-order are going to get 6 months free, which is exciting. And also, if you want to win a swag bag, email soberonions@aol.com. And if you're loving the podcast and you want to help it keep going, you're going to go ahead and do your patron donate to paypal.com/soberonions. All right, guys, thank you so much, and we appreciate you, and have a great week.